Well, that's great,
Hello,
Denzel.
hello. Okay, so hi everybody. Thank you so much for being here and welcome to the first Conversations with the Curator. This is the first virtual conversation and the first conversation ever. I think we haven't done this before. I am your host, Chantel Drake. I'm Director of Development Communications at the Dixon. So yes, of course, we want to thank you all for being here, but more importantly, we want to thank you for being members. We are so grateful for your membership, and we can't say thank you enough for renewing this year. We are here with Julie Pierotti, our Martha R. Robinson curator, and Kevin Sharp, the Linda W. and S. Herbert Ray director of the Dixon, to talk about For America, paintings from the National Academy of Design, the current exhibition now on view at the Dixon. If you haven't already seen the exhibition, reserve a time and make plans to visit soon because it will close on September 27th. This event is going to be a little different from Culture and Cocktails, which we had with Julie in July, and the director's tour with Kevin in August, because there won't be a virtual tour. It's more of a conversation from Julie and Kevin's perspective, not only about the artworks in For America, but the exhibition in general, the process, and their thoughts around specific topics. We will be giving away a catalog at the end of this event, so stick around to see if you are a lucky winner.
Is it this catalog?
Kevin's got it. Thank you, Kevin. I was supposed to have a catalog in my lap and I forgot. So I'm glad that you have yours. And we will go to questions or comments that are left in the Q&A or in the chat near the end of the event. But first, we are going to get started with some icebreaker questions, so our audience can get to know Kevin and Julie a little bit better. And the first question is, if you weren't a curator or a director in a museum, what would you do and why? Julie, go.
I struggled with this one. I did not. I hate to jump off on a note like that. I just couldn't really think of anything because I feel like I've kind of known what I wanted to do for a while. I don't know. I did have a job in graduate school where I worked at a bakery, and it wasn't like a bakery with a storefront. It was like a bakery for a lady who made cakes for restaurants, and I loved it. It was the most fun job. So maybe if I wasn't doing what I do now, I'd have a bakery. My daughter loves to bake, and we like to bake together. So maybe
Love it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Kevin.
Interesting. Well, if I wasn't a curator and a director, what would I be doing? I'd probably be doing time somewhere. You know, it's
Yikes.
This like Julie, this has been my thing for a long time. But early in my adult life, I was a carpenter, and I really loved being a carpenter. And it was my family's business. And so, I mean, there's probably a pretty good chance that if I hadn't decided to, pursue, graduate studies and, all that stuff.
Hey, Ronald.
Who is that guy?
Ronald's just like turning on lights.
Ronald, come over here and adjust the lighting. Anyway,
I love it.
Special guest star.
So you'd be a contractor.
I would not go that far.
Okay.
Maybe, but maybe.
You'd be good at that. You're a good leader.
Maybe so.
That's really kind of awesome, though, that both of you can't think of anything else you'd rather do because you love what you're doing so much. I mean, I think that says a lot.
Yeah.
I can think of like 12 things. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Would you care to share 11 of them?
Okay, so if you had to live in a painting for the rest of your life, which would you pick and why?
I'll go first. Is that okay? I picked Renoir's Luncheon of the Boating Party, and I think Chantel's sharing a picture of it.
I am.
I love this painting. If you go to Washington, you can see it. But I thought, especially now, since we've been, 6 months here without getting to go to restaurants with our friends and our family, and I guess our dogs too. A painting like this reminds you of happier times when, you could all gather together carefree without worrying about who's coughing on whose food or getting too close or not wearing a mask or, whatever. So I think, and it's just, I like happy paintings. I like people paintings. I like paintings with people in them. And this one's always been one of those. It's just kind of joyful, I think.
Kevin?
That's so good. That should have been mine. That should have been
Beat you
mine.
to it.
I'm actually that guy on the left, right there, with the hat.
Yeah, that's you.
I actually knew that Julie chose this, and it was such a good choice. It really put the pressure on, and so I went more for a painting that that I really love, and it's Peter Bruegel the Elder's Peasant Dance. And
nice.
Bruegel. We kind of chose the same thing, sort of festive scenes with lots of people around, and that probably speaks to the moment we're living in. This painting's in the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Vienna, and it's just a remarkable work. And Bruegel is such a complex and gifted painter. While it's this joyous scene, it's also a painting that sort of moralizes in a way, because it speaks to, I don't know if they're the 7 deadly sins, but it speaks to, things like anger and avarice and a variety of other complex human emotions and activities. And so there's more to it than really meets the eye. But I also thought I would look really good in leggings.
That's funny, Kevin. I thought about Bruegel and all of his paintings with a lot of people in them, and I almost picked a Jan Steen painting.
Yeah.
That live in, because they're all kind of happy and drinking and have a good time in his paintings too. So I think we all maybe miss gathering more than we take time to stop to realize.
I agree.
Awesome. Okay. So, have you ever had an emotional response to a work of art? And if so, which one? Julie.
Yeah. Okay, so I picked this painting. This is Titian's Sacred and Profane Love. And okay, let me preface this by saying I have an emotional response to nearly every, lots of works of art. Not all of them, but there's so many paintings that you encounter in museums at the Dixon or wherever you go around the world that kind of stop you dead in your tracks. So it was really hard to pick one, but I do have a memory of being, going to Rome, and I think, 10 years ago, whatever, and being at the Galleria Borghese, which is just one of the most beautiful places in the world, and just amazing art collection. And seeing this painting and having the time to spend in front of it, it was just really, luxurious. It's a luxurious painting. It's a beautiful work of art, and there's a lot going on here. And just the way it's painted is so amazing. And I, appreciated the opportunity to spend a lot of time in front of it and kind of let it bathe over me a little bit.
Awesome. Okay. So, Kevin, to you.
Well, I just decided that this is the painting I want to live in for the rest of my life.
You can't do that.
Too late, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm like Julie. I've had, I have a fairly visceral and emotional reaction to almost any work of art I encounter. on one level or another. But as I was thinking about this question, I remembered starting work at the Art Institute of Chicago back in 1987, and when I started working at the Art Institute, I actually hadn't been going to art museums all that long. Maybe 10 years. My family, wasn't the kind of family where we went to art museums. We didn't live in a city that had one or a town that had one. So, as I was, kind of wandering the halls of the Art Institute and cutting through the galleries to get to, other people's offices and things, and I'm there before the museum opens, and, there would be times when I almost, when I'd almost be late for meetings, except I was so earnest I would never be late. But I'd get sidetracked. I couldn't believe that I'm standing in front of this incredible painting, and I kind of went between, because this painting, when I worked there, hung right next to Van Gogh's self-portrait, and I was equally one of his self-portraits, and I was equally mesmerized by it. But the very idea that I was standing in front of this painting that Van Gogh himself had painted at one of the most challenging times in his life. He's gone to the city of Arles to try to create the Studio of the South, and he's joined by his friend Gogh, and he winds up having having sort of the definitive episode where he slashes his ear, and I just imagine him in this room, on good days and bad, and this room meant enough to him that he painted it 3 times. And so I don't know, it was just, I just always found this picture very, very moving. But this is one of thousands, maybe tens of thousands of works of art that have absolutely moved me in my life. Some that I've seen over and over and over, and others that I'm seeing for the first time. One of the great privileges of working in art museums, and going there every day, is having this access, having this opportunity to, to see works of art kind of unfettered.
Yeah,
Right?
I agree. I think there is the experience of coming across a painting that you've wanted to see for years, like when, I call it art history 101 in the flesh, when you go to museums and see things that you've studied in books, and it's so exciting. But it's also such a privilege, as you're saying, to work in an art museum and get to experience works of art in our collection every day. And sometimes, just depending on the mood I'm in, I might walk through the residence, and all of a sudden that day, the wave will really speak to me, and I'll just stand in front of it for a little while. Or the next day, it might be one of the Fenton Latour still lifes or something.
Yeah.
And you notice something new about it and kind of think, oh. So, and that's not just something that we get to do working in museums. It's all of you that are on here tonight as our members. You can come as often as you want and let, however you're feeling that day, see what works of art strike you in a certain way that day, which I think is, that's really exciting.
It is. That's awesome. That's great. Okay, so what is a movie, one of your favorite movies, or just a movie that features artwork that you want to share?
How much time do you have?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Kevin first on this one.
All right. All right.
No, I'm going to go with Julie first.
No, you're
Sorry.
not going with me.
So I was going to, this is up here as a joke because this movie is so sleazy, but the Thomas Crown Affair, obviously is a movie that's, really known to be set in a museum, but it is so sleazy. But on the Curator Circle trip last year, right, we saw Pierce Brosnan in the bar in our hotel.
That's right.
Oh, wow.
That's right. And he looked
It was
great.
a defining moment in my life.
I would have been very excited about that.
It was amazing. He looks amazing. It was very cool. But
Very cool.
that's not my movie.
Okay, no, that was the joke. I put that in there. But now Kevin, you can go.
All right.
Kevin.
This is by no means my favorite movie at all, but it is a movie with Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman, and it's called Indiscreet. It's from 1958, and the reason it leapt to mind, I mean, like I said, it's kind of a Hitchcock wannabe film. I don't know what Steve thinks of this. I'm sure he'll let us know. But the thing that, Ingrid Bergman lives in this amazing apartment in London, as I recall, and she has this fabulous art collection. So every scene in that apartment, you're seeing some really interesting work of art. Like in this particular shot, which obviously that's not Cary Grant, but it had the Picasso on the wall in the background, and it's kind of worth watching just for the works of art that you can kind of identify in the film.
Mm-hmm. Good one.
All right, Julie.
Yeah. So I didn't pick a Hitchcock wannabe. I picked an actual Hitchcock movie, Vertigo, which I think is a great, obviously a great movie to begin with, but a great museum movie because of Kim Novak going and Jimmy Stewart following her to the Legion of Honor in San Francisco. And if you've ever been to the Legion of Honor in San Francisco, when you kind of walk up to go into the building, you kind of have a Hitchcock moment because there's those scenes where he's kind of setting the scene and gives you that shot right in front of it with, I don't think you can drive a car up there anymore, but in the movie, there's the car in front of the building. And it's kind of in such a beautiful setting there that it's, to me, that was like the first thing that kind of popped out to me. And then she's looking, oh yeah, there it is, good.
Nice.
We sat in that room last year. Good. Yeah. The galleries still look pretty much the same. So when you go in there, you can still have that Hitchcock blonde experience or something. It's, I thought that was really great. Kind of a no-brainer museum movie. I was going to do Ferris Bueller. Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh, yeah.
And then I even thought about, been watching a lot of movies over quarantine, but none of them really that great, but the first Batman '89, when they're in the museum and they spray paint all the
Yes.
books of art in the museum. About that too.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we are going to stop sharing the screen for now because we're going to jump into some For America questions, and then we'll share the screen again.
Okay.
So, why For America? What about this exhibition seems like a good fit for Memphis?
Well, I was the one that kind of took this show to Kevin, I think, and kind of presented it to him. I knew he would like it as an Americanist and having such a good knowledge of so much about American art. But I thought it was a good opportunity for Memphians to be able to see this collection. The National Academy Museum is closed for the time being. And so it's not like, pre-COVID, you could go to New York. It's it's not like you could go to New York and see this. So I thought this, that would make this a good opportunity. It's also gives you, and if you've been to the show, this gives you a really good survey of the history of American painting. So, it starts with the Hudson River School and goes all the way through, and I'm doing this kind of weaving through our galleries, goes all the way into contemporary art. And it's mostly a painting show. So, there's that. It's practically speaking, it was easy for us to install, but the works of art are really top notch. The work that's in the show is really great.
Kevin, you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, Julie's right. It's a wonderful exhibition with absolute masterpieces in the show. But the National Academy itself is such an interesting entity. it's been, around since 1825. It's one of the oldest art institutions in the country. And it's had, both a dominant and a kind of tortured, life over the arc of its time in existence. It's gone from being, sort of the seat of vanguard painting in the United States to being the kind of old fogey in the room. And it's an organization that other organizations splintered off from because it was considered stultifying or not inclusive. And so anyway, I mean, it just, the paintings speak for themselves, but the institution itself has had kind of a fascinating history as well. And so I was attracted to that.
I also thought, and I've kind of enjoyed this as we've had the show up and I've had time to go in the galleries. The idea behind the catalog and the labels is that current National Academy artists are responding to the works in the collection, and sometimes it's kind of funny to read, and sometimes I find them really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. The Dixon organizes many of its exhibitions. How different is the process of organizing a show versus selecting a package show, like For America?
It's a really different process. Yeah, night and day. So the shows that you all come to see at the Dixon, we either organize ourselves or someone else has organized and we kind of borrow them or rent them for a little while. Or actually there's a third one in there where we're kind of a partner in a project, organizing partner. But yeah, when we organize our own exhibitions, we do every bit of the work. So we choose which works are going to be in the show. We shop the show to other, institutions. If we're borrowing works from other museums, we have to ask for them, year or 2 years in advance. Write the catalog, get the catalog made, do all that, write the labels, do all of the work. Versus For America, it all just came to us already, kind of already done.
Yeah, and I get to write a big check for
that's true.
So we organize our own shows a lot. I mean, a lot more than an institution our size really does. But we do it, and we do it for lots of reasons. Reason is, by doing it ourselves, we are able to, we're able to bring wonderful works of art to Memphis in, like I said, a fairly cost-efficient way. But it also gives us, sort of pride of ownership, and we'll develop the show that we actually want. Now, this For America is a show that we actually wanted as well, but it's just different. I mean, if For America was an exhibition that Julie and I organized from the National Academy's collection, it probably would have been different in lots and lots and lots of ways. But that wasn't the project. But we are, we're only a couple of people, and curatorial is a department of 5, and they are incredibly hardworking and productive. But every now and then we come to a point where we have to kind of stop and do a reset to begin the development of the next series of exhibitions. And in that organizing interval, we really depend on other institutions to provide shows for our galleries.
Okay, I think that's really interesting for people to hear, just because we don't really hear about the process at all, really, in terms of organizing the exhibition, all the work that goes into it from the Dixon side of things. So I think it's just an interesting thing for people to understand all of the work that goes into organizing an exhibition.
Well, and I think our members kind of know obviously our members know when we've organized a show, but I think the energy surrounding an exhibition is different when we've organized a show ourselves. Would you say, Kevin?
Oh, I think so. And, it's also just the kind of a generational difference where, people, and this may be a too much of a blanket statement, but when I was coming up in museums at the Art Institute, the process was not something we really ever shared, because we just didn't want to drain the magic out of the works of art or the shows themselves. So how those shows actually got onto the walls of the museum, which is something we didn't really talk about or share. And now it's really, it's quite different because people do seem to be interested.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
it is. I think, I think behind the scenes information is always interesting for people, and you just don't really see it as much in the museum side of things. You see it from movies and TV shows or whatever, but I think it's, there's just as much work that goes into organizing an exhibition. So I think that's important to share, and I think people enjoy that. Okay. What major art movements can be seen in this exhibition and can be identified specifically as an American style?
Oh, easy.
Go ahead, Julie.
Yeah, when you first walk in the show, excuse me, the first gallery is pretty much devoted to Hudson River School painting, which is, as Kevin's kind of an expert in that, as he is in many things.
One point for Julie, favorite staff member tonight.
It's really the first true American art movement. And so that kind of gets the show kind of kicked off. But there's also other movements represented in there. That are really, there's American Impressionism, which we'll be talking about a lot at the Dixon starting in January when we have a show on American Impressionism. And then they have a nice examples by Ashcan artists, so artists working around the turn of the century, early 20th century, and American regionalist paintings from the 30s and 40s.
Oh yeah. Well, I think you hit it right on the head by starting with Hudson River School painting, because that is a kind of quintessential American style, and it was America's first style. First American invented style, I should say. Not that Americans invented landscape painting, but the American wilderness was just so different than anything anyone had really seen in, at least in the Western world, in terms of landscape painting, that it really kind of defined us in many respects. So, and then that's also, I think of regionalist painting as being kind of essentially American as well. And, that kind of genre painting happens in other places, but the American character really gets expressed. And, the John Stewart Curry painting in For America is just so good. And there are others as well, but yeah, I'd say those are probably two that, because if you get much later, it all becomes so international. The things that are going on in New York, or the things that are going on in San Francisco, or the things that are going on in Tokyo, the things that are going on in Barcelona. It's, as communications improves, things become much more globalized.
Okay. So I'm going to show some images now for this next question, which is, are there any artworks in the exhibition that you now see through a COVID-19 lens, and changes the way that you respond to it? So hold on.
Hasn't COVID changed? It just kind of changes the way you think about so many things. Paintings, yes, but watching TV and seeing commercials of people at a party. I'm like, where are their masks? Or
Yeah. So Kevin, I'm going to let you go first because this is
Yeah, you
good
know,
choice.
you know, yeah, I guess it is. I mean, I love Huey
sorry.
Lee Smith paintings. You know, this is a painting by Huey Lee Smith called The Bridge. And, and it's he doesn't always paint scenes without figures in them, but they're often very spare, very isolated. And this one is, I mean, really so. And, it's just this kind of nondescript section of bridge that, just works its way into the composition, into a hayfield or something that clearly hasn't been mowed in a long time. And this, sort of barren sky, I mean, just the sort of the loneliness of the painting, the isolation of it. I don't know. It struck me as kind of a, not really a COVID painting, but this is a place you could be and you'd be safe, you'd be fine. I mean, what do you think?
You're definitely social distancing in this painting.
Yeah.
And as I've said, it turns out I'm really good at social distancing.
Yeah.
I don't like being that close to anybody under normal circumstances. And so I'm doing really good at this.
Well,
we know you don't mean that.
Yeah. Well, I think the isolation in that painting is really kind of what a lot of people felt, being bound to their house. And we're so used to being able to go and do whatever we want. When you're stuck at home, it can be lonely. Oh, okay. I think this one. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So Kevin, I think Kevin and I have both talked about this.
We love this painting.
But this was one of those moments when, when we prepare for our shows here, this is another kind of inside thing. We look at works of art on checklists, which are just like, I wish I had a checklist with me. I'm surprised I don't. Just a piece of paper with thumbnail images of everything. And you see this and think, oh yeah, whatever. Yeah, it's nice. There's a lot going on. But when we started installing this show, I had just come back to work and was, just excited to be there and whatever. We open this up and hang it up on the wall and get the label up. And, the painting's called Unemployment by an artist named Paul Sample. And something about, the subject, people, go into a soup kitchen or a mission. And then the fact that they're all crowded in there, it just felt like this all of a sudden kind of claustrophobic painting, but at the same time really poignant because at that moment when we were seeing things, the unemployment rate seemed so grim that it was just kind of spooky and kind of I say this a lot with art. It's the more things change, the more things stay the same. This artist working, he was in California when he was painting this. So it does kind of have the feel of like a movie set, I think. What do you call the shot in a movie where you kind of establish where you are, like an overhead shot sometimes? Kind of feels like that. But at the same time, it really resonated with, what America is going through right now. When we opened that crate and got it on the wall, it just kind of hit all of us on the installation team. Being able to see it through a 2020 lens. I think.
Yeah, this one, like Julie said, Julie and Kevin have both talked about this at the Culture and Cocktails and Directors Tour. And I've had it up on the screen 3 times for, for those 2 events and this one. And I see someone doing something different every time I look at it. It's just, it's full of lots of different characters. And it's a really good painting to just stand in front of in the galleries and take it all in because there's definitely a lot going on.
I see somebody asked how large is it? It's pretty big. Right? I mean, I'm so bad with dimensions. Maybe 48 by 48 or something like that.
Maybe not quite that big, but it's a good size easel painting. I'd say maybe 40 by 30.
Okay.
Something like that, maybe. And from Dorothy and Steve, we've learned that the shot that you're talking about at the beginning of films is an establishing shot.
Isn't that what I said?
And I think it is, actually.
I took a
It
film
didn't-
class in college.
It didn't
I
sound as
remember.
definitive from you as it did from Steve.
That's cool.
Okay, so the next question is, what is your idea of a good painting, and which work in the exhibition exemplifies that?
Oh, this one's mine. Yeah.
That's a
Yes,
great
it
painting.
is.
Yeah. I wish it was bigger. It's bigger on the screen. It's a perfectly fine size. It's by Maxville Parish. It's called St. Valentine, and it's from about 1904, and which is about the time that Maxville Parish becomes an academician, or an associate academician of the National Academy of Design. And this little picture on the screen doesn't do it justice. You have to go see this painting, and it's the kind of painting. Well, it's the kind of painting that I wasn't always attracted to. It's kind of finicky. It's got so much detail. I tend to go towards the more expressive side of things. Before I became attracted to the work of Maxville Parish, I love the work of Jackson Pollock. So it took me a while to get to this, but now that I'm at this age, the kind of precision that goes into a work of art like this, I admire it enormously. And with Parish, I just don't know how he does it. I don't know how he physically makes a lot of the work he makes. This painting for sure. It's just meticulous, and it takes all this very careful work to actually achieve it. But he also is a landscape painter, and they have this kind. His paintings have this kind of luminous glow, and you can almost see a bit of it in the background of this painting.
Yeah.
But it's even more so in some landscapes where they actually look like they're often twilight subjects, and they often look as if they are lit from within, like there's a light behind the painting that's making it glow the way it does. So I guess the older I get, the more I really admire craftsmanship.
Yeah. I kind of feel the same way about Maxville Parish as you. In some ways, I think of him as like calendar art.
Yeah.
Because his paintings are on so many calendars and postcards and greeting cards. But when you see them in person, they're really, really beautiful. And this painting is awesome in person. It's great.
Okay, so this is another Kevin that you were.
Yeah. I just throw that because that is Parish's. That's a portrait of Maxville Parish by Kenyon Cox, by his friend Kenyon Cox, and it's the painting he submitted to become, I guess, an associate, and it's I just think it's a striking portrait.
Yeah, I do too.
Awesome. Okay, Julie, we couldn't find a detail of yours. I'm sorry, but.
Oh, this isn't the Dixon.
No, it is not. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. So the question is kind of like, what is your idea of a good painting? And I kind of think it's a painting that stops you in your tracks. So a good painting to me is totally different than a good painting to Chantel or a good painting to Kevin. It just has to do with kind of what I was saying a little bit earlier. It's like where you are on that day or where you are in your life in terms of what you look for in a painting. And this painting's by Gretna Campbell. It's like kind of a lesser known artist that's in this exhibition. And this was one that really kind of struck me as being good and having a really good energy to it. When you walk by this painting, you can feel the kind of wild, natural energy kind of emanating from it. So I look for paintings that kind of, I guess something that feels good to me is a painting that has its own, I don't know, energy, I keep saying, but it's kind of the truth, its own energy coming out of it. It doesn't have to be wild like this. It can be kind of quiet. But I really, this painting kind of spoke to me in the show.
Awesome. Okay. So both of you chose paintings to discuss in For America, just to kind of have a conversation between the two of you about specific works in the exhibition. And Kevin, this is the painting that you chose.
Yeah. No, I and Marissa early on in the chats, asked us to talk about Cecilia Beaux.
Yes.
And so I'm really glad I chose this work.
Yeah.
I like Cecilia Beaux. I like her a lot as a painter. I got to work on what was probably the last Cecilia Beaux retrospective, I think it was in 2006, maybe something like that. I wrote an essay for the catalog. And I got really interested in portraiture. And there are these moments when artists sort of arrive at a zeitgeist, at a spirit of the times, when something is really important to the larger culture, and they're able to fulfill that important need. And that's exactly what Cecilia Beaux did. And so she's a woman artist working in the 19th century. So she's already working with one arm tied behind her back. She doesn't have a whole lot of formal training at all. She doesn't really make a serious painting until she's 30 years old. And I just kind of love that. I mean, she's very conscious of the fact that her family needs her to provide an income. She's not married; she never marries. But she's in this family of really mostly of women, including her grandmother and her aunt. And her aunt is an artist as well. And so for the first 7-8 years of her life as an artist, she paints portraits of children on china plates. I mean, she does sort of it's like the lowest place on the food chain for an artist. And then she decides to make a painting, a significant painting of her sister and nephew, and it's called The Last Days of Infancy. And it's it comes like a thunderbolt. It's out of the blue. It's just this miracle of a painting that she's had in her all this time, but has either never made the time or had the opportunity to pursue. And so she pursues it with a vengeance after that, and goes to Europe, trains over there a little bit, becomes part of a circle of American artists in Concarneau and in Normandy and Brittany. In the late 1880s, back and establishes a studio in New York and Philadelphia. First New York, then Philadelphia, I think. And she happens to land in these places at the exact time that America is absolutely, Gilded Age America is actually starving to be portrayed. She's a portrait artist in an age when everyone wants to have their portrait made, and she just does it. She just does it brilliantly. The other thing I really love about Cecilia Beaux, and this is apropos of nothing, is that, she looks like she's about 20 in this self-portrait, and she's actually 40.
Ah.
And she really looks like this. She's incredibly beautiful. There are plenty of photographs of Cecilia Beaux. And so she paints this in 94. And by this time, she's come to the attention of Sargent and William Merritt Chase. And Chase gives her he means it as a compliment, but he says she's the best woman painter in America. And it's got all this gender bias, but it's really meant as a compliment. And in fact, she's one of the best painters of her age. And did you add that the other one I sent you?
I did, yeah.
I mean, this is
Oh,
one
yeah,
of
that's
my
such a great-
favorite
yeah.
paintings, of all time. It's her portrait of her brother-in-law, this lanky man in a white suit and a pink shirt, and he's got his legs crossed, and he's got these great sideburns and mustache, and these incredibly long fingers, and he's holding a cat. It's just,
I was like, get to the point of what you really love about this painting. It's the cat.
It's a perfect painting. It's in the collection of the Smithsonian American Art Museum. Anytime I'm in Washington, I go see this painting. And I mean, just the bravura of the brushwork it's just superb. And she does this again and again and again in the 1890s and early 20th century. She winds up painting Teddy Roosevelt's portrait when he's president. He's that good.
Awesome.
Good choice, Kevin.
Okay, Julie.
Oh,
You're next.
Oh,
you don't like this?
I love it.
Oh, you do? Okay. So I had to choose it. I initially wanted to pick this as my, if you had to live in a painting. But then I wanted to talk about it as my painting for the show as well. So this is by Robert Frederick Blum, Two Idlers, from 1888, I think. And Blum is an artist that I think is really, kind of interesting. And I come across him more in books that I read than at the Dixon. I don't know, I can't think of another show we've had where there's been a Blum in it. But anyway, this is such a great painting by him. This was done, most of the time when you think of Blum, he's an American artist, he's from Cincinnati. Oh, here's where I really kind of came across him recently. Some of y'all might know that we're working on a new permanent collection catalog that'll be published next fall. So stay tuned for that. But I was writing an entry on our painting that we got a couple years ago by Ferdinand Lundgren at the cafe or in the cafe, and reading about Lundgren. Well, Lundgren is from Cincinnati, where, and that's the painting. It's really great. I hope y'all love it as much as I do. And Lundgren and Blum are both from Cincinnati and start taking their art classes together at the McMicken School in Cincinnati, and they become really close friends. They go to, Blum and Lundgren go to Pennsylvania Academy. They go to Philadelphia to study together. They go to New York together, excuse me, to pursue their careers as illustrators and artists. And then they also go to Paris together. And this is all kind of, they go to Paris together around the time that Lundgren paints this painting in the early 1880s. And they're so tight, they're such good friends that in their time, their other friends called them Blumgren, kind of like Benifer or whoever, I don't know, whatever else people get. J-Rod, Jennifer Lopez and Alex Rodriguez. So they're that good of friends. So I just kind of got reinterested in him that way. And then, on another level, this is Blum painting his friend, another artist, William Bear is the artist, and that's the man. And then the woman is his wife, Laura, who's a musician, a really kind of talented musician at the time. So the other reason I kind of got interested in this painting was, and this could have been my painting that I talked about for a painting I see differently through a post-COVID lens, because, the subject is idleness, two idlers. And for so long, the idea of being idle was a negative thing. It meant you were lazy and kind of, for someone who comes from a family like me, we're like hardworking people, and to be idle meant you were, lazy. You weren't doing what you were supposed to be doing. But then, when we're all at home during quarantine, you had all this time to be idle, and it kind of makes you think differently about it. And it was kind of, it was a luxury for all of us to be at home. I wasn't too idle, Kevin. I worked a lot.
Yeah, I was going to inquire about your timesheets.
But I think, there's something to that where you see, excuse me, a subject like this in a different light, having gone through what we just did. And the whole idea of idleness as being this subject in that American artists are, choosing for their paintings. Just 2 paintings down, this painting is 2 paintings down from the Cecilia Beau self-portrait. And then 2 paintings to the left is William Merritt Chase's portrait of the young orphan, which has also got this other title of An Idle Moment. So this, and then there's, J. Alden Weir's painting of Idle Hours, where it's like the mother and the child kind of just playing the guitar and being lazy and hanging around. So there's this, that's a common subject, a common theme for artists to kind of try to evoke in their paintings. And some of it has to do with, obviously the people in this painting are well-to-do enough that where he's wearing, like a morning suit. And she's got this kind of fabulous gown on, lounging around on a nice front porch. I think this was done in New Jersey, but there's something about it that's just kind of comforting, and a painting that makes you want to kind of be a part of that moment.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to no longer share my screen.
I'm trying to think.
And we are going to wrap up by going to the Q&A in the Zoom.
That really fast. Wow.
I know.
I could do this all night.
A couple more cough drops and some tea, right? We can be here until 10 o'clock.
Sorry. Y'all are so nice to listen
No,
to.
we can hear everything that you're saying, so it is not a problem at all. Okay, question. How is Dixon staff preparing the next generation of curators and art administrators to organize shows and to shop and collaborate with other arts institutions, especially related to Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and related to Memphis artists and art curators?
Wow. Great question.
Maybe I should have saved that one to the end.
That's a lot of question.
It is.
That's a lot of question. How are we? Well, I would say this. I mean, we and Chantel, you could probably speak to this as well. I mean, I think the Dixon does a pretty good job. I mean, especially for a small institution, in investing in the professional development of its staff, really across the board. I mean, Chantel, have you had any kind of professional development experience that you'd like to share?
Sure. So I guess in 2014, so I've been at the Dixon for almost 10 years, which I cannot believe.
Amazing.
10 years
Wow.
in November. And since then, I have gone through a couple of different classes and fellowships, gone to a few conferences, but just last year, I was selected to be a fellow at the Getty Leadership Institute, which is a pretty big deal for museum professionals. Yeah.
Like
and
the gold standard.
Yeah. So, and it was a fantastic experience. I learned so much, and that's just one example of the professional development opportunities that Dixon staff has. And hopefully we'll continue to have after COVID. Nobody went to a conference this year, just in case anybody was wondering. Yeah. We were all safely here in Memphis. We didn't go anywhere. A lot of the conferences were canceled as well. But yeah, tons of opportunity. And Kevin also, in an example of something else that I was able to experience last year, we have an exhibition coming up in the fall of 2021, Black Art in America, or Black Artists in America. And I got my master's degree in art history and did my thesis on 3 African-American artists, and Dr. Ernestine Jenkins was my thesis advisor, and I suggested her as a guest curator for that exhibition, and I was able to go on a couple of research trips, and
it was fun.
And yeah. Riding in the back of Kevin's Prius to St. Louis, always a good time. Always a good time. So, and, you know, he brought me into that process just because it was something I hadn't experienced before, and I appreciated that as well.
Yeah, and I'll say, you know, the Dixon is really good about sending us to conferences, but the great thing is that when we come back, we all share with the whole staff, not just our departments or just the department heads, but the entire staff. What people are talking about at these conferences. What did I learn? What are these new, you know, strategies that museums are doing to reach new audiences? So even if I don't get to go to the Getty Leadership Institute or AAM conference, I get to hear about what went on there and, you know, think about, I guess, kind of learn from your experiences and let them inform what I do and what Kevin does and what you do in, you know, in your daily work.
Yeah. And I think, you know, on top of that, we're also reaching out and working with a lot more organizations in the community, specifically people of color and Black arts organizations, to give them an opportunity to have, especially for the smaller organizations, to give them an opportunity to have a larger platform to share what they do and who they are. And also we learn just as much from them as they do from us, and we appreciate that synergy and those partnerships, and we realize how important those are as well.
Yeah, well put.
Okay, so another question. Kevin or Julie, has Kevin or Julie ever changed their opinions of an artist once seeing their work in person?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Julie's like, yes.
Yes.
Oh, it's always for the better.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
You know, there was a time, I don't know why this particular example flew into my head, but for the longest time, I didn't think I liked David Hockney.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw the Hockney retrospective, like, which would now be considered a mid-career retrospective. I mean, this was like probably in the early 90s. And it was like, what was my problem?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's always that way. You know, it's some artists, I haven't seen a lot of his or her work in person, and then I finally do, and it's like, you know, what's wrong with me?
Well, and I think that's what a retrospective can do.
Yeah.
I have two good examples of that. One of that is Van Gogh. Like, I never was that like into Van Gogh for whatever reason. And then when we went to Amsterdam to the Van Gogh Museum, and you get to kind of trace the artist's life through their paintings, it changes your opinion of them. And now I love them. Now I get them a little bit better. Isn't that crazy? I never was like, because you see like one painting here, two paintings there, and it just never spoke to me for whatever reason.
What's wrong with you?
I don't know. Another artist, and Kevin and I have talked about this, is Tissot. When I saw your friend Gloria Groom's Impressionism, Fashion, and Modernity, I had never been such a huge Tissot fan, or I just never just gave him a second thought. And then that exhibition was kind of a mini Tissot show in some ways. I mean, it was about French art in the second half of the 19th century and how their artists were painting men's and women's fashion. But there was a lot of Tissot running through the show because that was a big thing in his life. When his father, they were in like textiles and garments and things like that.
Yeah, and it shows.
Yeah, and his ability to paint fabric is just incredible. And that show is still one of my favorite museum shows I've seen, and totally changed my opinion on the artist.
What about you, Chantel?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't think of anything. I think I'm like too much in like Zoom hosting mode. Like trying.
No, don't put her on the spot.
Well, that's what I do.
Yeah, that is what he does. But I will say that there was at the National Portrait Gallery, I saw Edmonia Lewis's Cleopatra in person. And it just was a lot more striking than I thought it was going to be. It's, you know, it's a marble sculpture.
And not just a piece of marble, right?
Yeah, right. Not at all. Not at all.
Sculpture is like that, I think. Sculpture,
Yeah.
I feel like you kind of need to see in person because the photographs sometimes are just kind of can be.
They don't do it justice. Yeah, and you don't really get it until you are standing there in front of it. Plus, Edmonia Lewis's story is just so sad to me. So I really just like. Okay, so who are contemporary artists that curators and others should be watching now?
We don't know.
Well, I will say this. We have Mallory and Würzburger exhibitions throughout the year, which puts a spotlight on our local contemporary artists. And so check out our newsletter and our website for all of the upcoming Mallory and Würzburger shows, because those are some of the big names that we're looking at in Memphis specifically.
Yeah, and I want to say the artist that was, going to be the Mallory and Würzburger artist while, this past spring, her name's Brittany Bullock. She's amazing, and her work is I'm really excited about showing her work at the Dixon. Since we weren't able to show it this past spring, we'll be showing it in spring of 2021.
So that show will happen at the same time as Memphis 2021. Is that right?
Right. And
Memphis 2021. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, right now we have Maritza Davila's work up. She's such great work. It's great work. Such a great fixture in the Memphis arts community. Such a supporter of so many people. This fall we have the Memphis Calligraphy Guild doing a show of their work. So that's a great opportunity to discover artists that you might not know of, artists doing a kind of art that you might not go see at a gallery opening on a Friday night. And then we have Jimpsy Ayers, who's just a great painter. And I love Jimpsy, love her work. Going to be showing her in January. And then we have Brittany in the spring at the same time as we have our Memphis 2021 show, which was actually going to be Memphis 2020. And there's a great group of artists that are going to be a part of that show. And, I guess I'm excited about all of them. I couldn't, pick one or two of them, I guess, to single out. But we're so lucky here in Memphis to have such a rich arts community. And I feel like the arts community really supports each other. So we have great support from artists in Memphis. And we try to support them as well. Okay, so this is a question specific to Kevin's pick for a painting to live in. So I might just pull it back up. Why are the two figures in Kevin's painting so small and out of scale? So let me. Oh, in the Bruegel, yeah.
The Bruegel.
I'm gonna pull it up so people can.
No need.
You don't think?
I'm sure everybody, unless you can find it easily.
I got it. I'm done. I'm doing it. It's happening.
Actually representations of children. But, they're children that look like small adults, which is really, although the one may be, I don't know. I really don't. I really don't know. I would guess that the two are children. And, in the 16th century, children were thought of as just miniature adults, basically. The whole idea of childhood becomes very much a 19th century construction. And I would say that the woman to the far left, maybe just a small person.
You got to look for things like that in Bruegel. There's a lot to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to see.
I'm going to stop share now, and I'm going to wrap up if we don't have any more questions. Those are all really great questions. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, yes, thank you.
Can you tell us more about Director's Tour and Culture and Cocktails?
Yeah.
Chantel, that's for you.
Yeah.
Sure. So, Culture and Cocktails is an event that we've been doing for years in person for our Young at Art and Cosmopolitan membership group. We had already scheduled one for America, and once COVID happened, we quickly transitioned to organizing a virtual event, which we had at the end of July, I think. Does that sound right, Julie? I can't really remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the director's tour is also an event that we would usually have in person for a specific membership level. Kevin leads a tour and is around to answer questions, and he gives a very personal and fun and entertaining look at the paintings that he spotlights on the tour. And there's wine and hors d'oeuvres usually, but of course we didn't have any of that. But we did have Barbara Williamson, our board chair. She did a drink demo for us, and she made a cocktail before the tour started for Culture and Cocktails. And then we had Chef Philip, who is the chef for our cafe, Park and Cherry. He did a little appetizer demo before the director's tour on Zoom. So that was really fun.
It was delicious.
And it was Aaron and Kevin made it. So that was, I did not, but Julie did make the cocktail when Barbara demoed that. So we've been having a lot of fun on Zoom. And I guess that brings me to my next point, which is we plan to organize so many more events virtually for our membership as a thank you for sticking with us this year. So please continue to look at your email and in your mailbox for invitations for some of those events that are coming up. I need to announce the winner of the catalog. I almost forgot.
And it's me.
No, you already have yours. The winner is, somebody give me a drum roll. That was good. That was pretty good. Dot Bilski is the winner of the For America catalog. Congratulations, Dot. So we are going to leave your name at the front desk, and you can come by the Dixon, or go by the Dixon, I'm not there, and pick up your catalog during regular hours of operation. So thank you so much, Dot, for being here, and congratulations. Okay, I think that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.
This was fun.
It was so much fun. We hope that you learned a little bit about Julie and Kevin, but also learned a little bit about the exhibition as well. And that if you've not made plans to visit the exhibition, that you do so soon, because like I mentioned, we are closing the exhibition on September 27th. Julie or Kevin, do you want to give a little shout out to what exhibition is opening in the fall?
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, our next show, it opens October 11th. Will be on the St. John's Bible, which is a contemporary illuminated manuscript that's commissioned by St. John's University in Minnesota. The lead artist for the project is a calligrapher named Donald Jackson, who's the calligrapher to Queen Elizabeth. And it's the first hand-illuminated, handwritten Bible commissioned by a Benedictine group, Benedictine monastery, in 500 years. It's amazing. It's we got to go to Omaha, Nebraska to see it, where that show has shattered attendance records there. It is a beautiful, beautiful work of art, and they show it in folios. So we'll get to see different pages in cases throughout the exhibition and learn a little bit about the making of the St. John's Bible.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's all we have for you, everyone. Enjoy your night, and we hope to see you at the Dixon soon.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you soon.
Okay. Oh, where's your meal?
If y'all want to get off, I'll stay on. I don't know who's supposed to end the meeting, so
You can end it. Good job, Chantel.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.